Welcome to Rare Coins Value. Today we are talking about one of the most important coins in modern American history, the 1965 Washington quarter dollar. Can you tell us why this coin is so special? Absolutely. The 1965 quarter is not just a normal 25-cent coin, it represents a major turning point in United States coinage. Before this year, quarters were made of 90% real silver, but due to rising silver prices, hoarding, and a national coin shortage, the U.S. Mint changed the composition to a copper-nickel-clad alloy. So 1965 became the very first year when America shifted away from silver quarters forever. It marks the moment the country moved from precious metal currency to modern industrial coinage. Millions were produced with no mint mark, and even today collectors search for rare errors, including a few extremely rare 1965 quarters accidentally struck on leftover silver planchettes worth thousands of dollars. So this coin is a symbol of history, economic change, and numismatic excitement all in one. The 1965 United States quarter dollar is one of the most historically meaningful, transitional, and highly discussed coins in modern American numismatics, because it represents not just a change in metal composition, but also a major turning point in the financial and cultural landscape of the United States Mint. When we speak about the 1965 quarter, we are not simply talking about a small 25-cent piece, rather we are discussing a coin that marks the end of an era when United States circulating coins were made of real silver, and the beginning of a new phase where clad metal took over forever. Before 1965, quarters, dimes, and half dollars were produced using 90% silver and 10% copper. But due to a combination of increasing silver prices, hoarding by collectors and the public, coin shortages across America, and heavy industrial demand for silver, the government was forced to take a dramatic step to change the composition of circulating coins so the economy could stabilize. Because of this, the 1965 quarter became the very first Washington quarter to be minted in a copper-nickel-clad format, consisting of an inner core of pure copper and an outer layer made from 75% copper and 25% nickel, creating a sandwich-style composition that is still used today. The interesting part is that millions of Americans during that era did not realize instantly that their new quarters no longer carried silver, which made the transition very surprising and confusing for some people, especially those who believed coins were a form of stored wealth rather than just currency for daily transactions. The obverse side of the 1965 quarter maintains the classic and iconic portrait of George Washington, the first President of the United States, a design created by sculptor John Flanagan in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of Washington's birth. The inscriptions remain the same. The word liberty above Washington's head, the national motto In God We Trust placed to the left side of his profile, and the minting year 1965 placed beneath the portrait. One important characteristic to notice is that the 1965 quarter does not carry any mint mark because that year all quarter production, whether it would have normally come from Philadelphia or Denver, was intentionally minted without mint marks to help discourage hoarding. On the reverse side, the original Flanagan eagle remains, proudly perched with wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows symbolizing defense and readiness, with an olive branch underneath symbolizing peace, and the United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. Production of the 1965 quarter was extremely high, exceeding over 1.8 billion pieces, making it one of the most mass-produced quarters in U.S. history, because the U.S. Mint urgently needed to flood the circulation and end the national shortage that affected banks, businesses, stores, and vending machines. An important thing many collectors talk about is that although 1965 was designated as the first year of clad quarters, the Mint kept producing 1964 dated silver quarters until well into 1966. And also continued producing 1965 dated clad quarters even in 1967, causing overlapping years and a lot of confusion which still excites coin collectors and researchers today. Due to this chaotic minting transition period, rumors, hoaxes, and myths emerged, including the belief that some 1965 quarters were secretly struck using leftover silver planchettes, and although extremely rare, there are authenticated examples of 1965 silver quarters, making them worth tens of thousands of dollars when discovered and certified, because such pieces are considered major mint errors and historical treasures. For the general public, however, most 1965 quarters found in circulation are copper-nickel clad and hold normal face value unless they remain in extremely high grade, like Mississippi 67 or Mississippi 68, where exceptional luster and sharpness make them desirable for grading competitions and professional collectors. Another fascinating thing about this coin is how dramatically it changed public psychology in that era. People who previously saved coins for their silver value suddenly found themselves holding money that was only valuable for spending rather than metal content. Silver coins began disappearing from circulation rapidly because people quietly stored them, hoping their value would rise in the future, which indeed became true. Meanwhile, the new clad 1965 quarters became common everyday money, seen in supermarkets, gas stations, telephone booths, jukeboxes, arcade machines, and public transportation systems. This transition shaped American currency culture permanently, proving that even a small coin can carry financial, political, and national identity significance. In modern times, collectors examine 1965 quarters using magnification, lighting, and digital scales to search for unusual pieces that may differ from the standard clad version, such as off-metal strikes, double dies, deep cameo proofs, or planchet transitional errors. The correct weight of a normal 1965 clad quarter is 5.67 grams, so if a coin weighs around 6.25 grams, it may possibly be silver, and that is where expert authentication becomes necessary. Most circulated 1965 quarters hold face value, but uncirculated and high-grade examples can reach respectable auction prices. The true beauty of the 1965 quarter is not merely in monetary value, but in the powerful historical lesson it carries, representing the moment the United States shifted from precious metal currency to modern industrial coinage designed for practicality, durability, and mass usage rather than wealth storage. Therefore, when you hold a 1965 quarter in your hand, you are not holding an ordinary coin, you are touching the first chapter of America's modern circulating coinage revolution. It is a physical symbol of change, economics, technology, and public psychology, sealed into metal forever. That is why collectors, historians, economists, and even ordinary citizens respect this coin, because it silently tells a long story about how nations evolve, how currency systems transform, and how a small metallic object can influence large national decisions. The 1965 quarter may not shine like silver, but it shines as a historical monument, and as long as coin collecting exists, it will always remain one of the most talked about transformation coins in United States history. When studying the 1965 quarter on a deeper level, collectors often talk about how the transition from silver to clad marked the beginning of a new economic identity for the United States Mint, one that prioritized circulation efficiency, production cost, and long-term stability rather than luxury or intrinsic metal value, and this shift slowly changed how Americans viewed their currency. Before this change, many people believed that holding silver coins was a way of safeguarding value against inflation or economic uncertainty, but after 1965, coins became symbols of utility rather than stored wealth, representing a practical tool designed for millions of daily transactions from coast to coast. Another remarkable factor is that the 1965 quarter holds emotional weight because it owns a dual identity, where older citizens remember it as the last goodbye to silver-based American coinage, while modern collectors admire it as the starting point of a new technological era in minting. Even today, many coin hunters search through old jars, rolls, garage sales, estate boxes, flea markets, junk drawers, and abandoned savings tins hoping to find either a high-grade uncirculated piece or the legendary rare silver planchet strike, which has become one of the most exciting jackpot discoveries in American numismatics. Though the standard 1965 quarter may appear ordinary, the possibility of finding an ultra-rare error version keeps the thrill alive, reminding collectors that history can surprise anyone at any moment. Another interesting aspect is that the surface characteristics of the clad 1965 quarter age differently compared to silver coins, because nickel-clad surfaces tend to develop dull gray patches and contact marks more easily, whereas silver coins develop attractive toning that can be blue, gold, violet, or rainbow-like depending on storage and chemical exposure. This is why high-grade, gemstone-quality 1965 quarters are considered difficult to obtain, because the majority of these coins were heavily circulated in daily commerce, dropped into metal trays, rubbed inside wallets, clashed with vending machines, and scraped through countless hands without being intentionally preserved. When grading bodies like PCGS or NGC evaluate them, they focus on strike sharpness, luster, surface cleanliness, and eye appeal, and only a tiny fraction score at the top mint state levels that make them premium collector pieces. The story becomes even more thrilling when experts emphasize that the coin was produced during chaotic minting years known as the transitional period, which makes error coins such as off-center strikes, double rim errors, broad strikes, and planchette mix-ups more believable and historically valuable. This coin also represents the resilience of America's monetary system, proving that even during financial pressure, a nation can redesign its currency without changing its identity or cultural symbolism. George Washington's portrait remained untouched, symbolizing leadership, strength, and continuity, and the eagle on the reverse remained as a symbol of national power, peace, and vigilance. Therefore, the 1965 quarter is not only a physical artifact, but a quiet storyteller of economics, patriotism, engineering, design philosophy, public emotion, and the invisible bond between money and national pride. Whether found in circulation, inherited from a family member, purchased at a coin show, or discovered accidentally inside an old forgotten drawer, the 1965 quarter is a reminder that every coin has a journey, every design has a purpose, and every year in numismatic history carries a message larger than the metal from which it is made. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.